All right, everyone, today we're going to be doing a fun one. So I'm doing this research project about used fabrics, and one of the techniques that I want to experiment with is taking these fabrics from these clothes that already have patterns on them and then dyeing them and seeing how that affects the pattern and what kind of cool art we could make out of that. There'll be more explanation of my project in upcoming videos, but all you need to know right now is that I've been collecting bins and bins of used clothes, most of which couldn't be reworn or donated. I've been cutting them up into pieces, then cutting them into squares, and now I'm trying to figure out how to make art with them through some combination of quilting, painting on them, and for this video, dyeing them. For most of this project, I haven't really known what I'm doing, and that includes today. All I know is that first we have to try actually dyeing it and see how that looks. So what I've done is I went through my giant collection of fabric last night and put together a few different collections of little tiny swatches. I'll go get them for you actually. And what I'm going to do is do a bunch of different rounds of test dyeing the swatches and just kind of seeing what happens. I've only ever dyed like one thing before, so this will be a little bit of a test run, little trial and error. We'll see how it goes. Now, for sure, mixed in here is a lot of different types of fabric, so that's part of why I'm curious just to run the test, because I don't know exactly what's all in here. For example, like this one here, it's hard to see, but that's like a super synthetic, like nasty texture. But then I have some that I'm pretty sure is just cotton and a lot of variety. Now, originally my plan for this was that I was just going to boil water in the stove and then put all the swatches in their own little cups or something. But then I realized you probably shouldn't dye fabric in something you're going to eat out of. I don't know. But then I had the idea to use a muffin tin, which seems to have really good potential. I was looking on the RIT website and it said that the water only has to be 60 degrees Celsius, and I'm pretty sure that the tap in the kitchen will be more than warm enough for that. So that kind of makes it a lot easier. I think all I have to do is get my muffin tin and fill it with warm water, and then you have to put some salt and some dish soap in there, I think. I mean, you know what I'm going to say. Don't use me as a tutorial, because I could sit here and really figure out how I'm going to do it, but I kind of want to just go do it. But first, a quick little review of all the swatches that we're going to be looking at. This is honestly for my own reference more than anything. I forgot to mention, but we're going to be using RIT dye for this experiment. I have 8 different colors that we're going to be trying out today, along with 4 of my own custom combinations that I want to try. So that brings us to a total of 12 different experiments we're going to do. Mangs. Oh, look. Okay, so after actually thinking about it for longer than 1 second, I realized maybe I should have overthought a little bit, because I definitely just don't have what I need. Like, why did I think that this was going to be enough to fully submerge each piece of fabric? I don't know. Anyway, so Benji's going to get me some containers. Shout out Benji and shout out Dollarama. All right, Benji pulled through as we knew he would, and hard to see, but he got me 12 of these little Tupperware big bowls, and I think that's going to be perfect. So now we'll cut to a montage of me dyeing the fabric. It's now time to dye. So after letting all the fabric soak for a few minutes, it was time to start dyeing them. First thing I did is I went through all the little containers and added a little bit of salt and some dish soap into each one. I think there's different things where sometimes you can put salt, sometimes you're supposed to put vinegar. I just put salt in all of them. So maybe if some of the results are weird later because of that, I don't know. Then I put a few drops of dish soap from this massive jug of dish soap that we have. At this point, I got my gloves on and was just trying to psych myself up to get started here. Tried to think if there was anything I could do to make this easier. I really wanted to be able to do this all myself, kind of all in one go. So I went through and started loosening the caps on all of the bottles. Now, this was good for efficiency. It did end up being stupid because later Benji did knock one over onto the counter because he didn't know that I'd done that. That's totally fair. But it was fine. It cleaned up. We're all good. Once I had done that, we were pretty much ready to start. I picked out my least favorite of our kitchen spatulas to become my dedicated fabric dye spoon. It was this one. I measured the dye with this tablespoon set that have cats on them. They're so cute. And the dye that I decided to start with was the Rit Evening Blue. For each one, I basically did the exact same thing. Right here, you see me filling up the Tupperware container with the water. Quickly poured the dye into the teaspoon, trying to do it while the water was still super hot. Poured that in there, took my spoon, and then just started mixing it up. You want to try and make sure that all of the fabric gets fully submerged while you're doing this. Obviously, for my purposes, because it's not like a piece of clothing, it didn't really matter as much. Part of it was uneven, it would be totally fine, but I still did my best to try and make sure that they all got in there. And what you can do at this point is take the corner of a paper towel and dunk it into the water to see if it comes out the color that you want. But for this one, I did not need to do that because I noticed immediately that some of the white pieces that I'd put in were already turning the color that I expected right away. And once they were kind of stirred for a few minutes, I put each container aside to sit while I did the next ones. Actually, do you want to take the iPad and point it at me while I'm showing you this? Yeah. So I realized that I did a bunch of these wrong. I forgot to shake the bottles. So, whatever. But I wanted to show this on camera. Like, this is the yellow one. And this is just a whole bunch of different fabrics. But isn't it cool when you look at this? It kind of makes it all look like it has a filter on it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It looks like they all come from the same place.
Yeah. And that's really getting me excited. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yep.
So I'm very excited to have these all dry off and get to look at them all. Because it sort of reminds me of like when you're painting and you like unify your palette where you kind of add like one of the same color to every color.
You have all your swatches.
Yeah. And that's kind of what this is reminding me of when I look at it. Okay, well, that ended up being a lot more than I thought. The day after I did the fabric dyeing, Benji was doing some gymnastics and he fell while upside down right onto his back. I think he fell like 5 feet. I thought he died because I thought at first that he fell on his neck. Luckily he didn't. And we had to go to the hospital. But he's fine. He can walk. He's all good. He's very sore, but he's fine. And right before he did the trick where he fell, he went, "Moment of truth." So I guess the moment of truth was that he shouldn't do that trick. But it's a couple days later. My fabric has fully had time to dry off. So now we're going to go take a look at how it looks. I'll go get the palettes. Here we are. This first one, I guess, must be the pink, the petal pink. This looks like the palette of like a a little Valentine's Day card or something. Now, obviously, with this one, some of this stuff or a lot of this stuff was already pink. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go and grab the original swatches that I put aside so we can compare. Goose, please do not be trouble. In French, you can say tenant. Please do not be tenant. Oh, don't. Goose, please don't fuck it up. No. So right off the bat, obviously, there's some that the original's just kind of white. I dye it pink, and, you know, one is white and one is pink. So that's not super interesting. Goose. Na 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 na. Tenant. This one struck me right away, so obviously the pink on the green is gonna like neutralize it a little bit. So you see this one here looks a lot more brown or gray compared to this one that looks a lot more green. You can also really see, this isn't the best camera for a close-up, but you know, this material kind of has these two different colors together, and you can see that the lighter color became a little bit more pink than the darker color, and that creates kind of a cool effect. Because I'm using the all-purpose dye and not the synthetic dye, I kind of expected this material to not really dye at all, but it actually dyed really well here, so I'm pretty impressed by that. That's just cool. The red, there's the dyed red, there's the original red. I'm looking on my screen and in real life, I don't think I really see a difference. Let me look up close. I don't think I see any meaningful difference there. Okay, now a crazy one is, here's the denim. Look at the pink denim. That is crazy. That is on a blue jean. That is pink, baby. And you can see like there's the blue still in there, but it's really that super light, almost white part of the denim fully got dyed pink, and that just makes the whole thing pink. It's not a super even dye here. Like, it's a little more blue at the top than on the bottom, but I did not expect that one at all. This one kind of just turned out as expected. It's always interesting to see when you're doing a fabric and there's like an embroidery or a stitching on it, just because depending on the difference of the material, it can have kind of a cool effect. This material, that probably means that the stitching is more of a synthetic fiber, so it kind of dyed the fabric better than it did the stitching. I'm looking at this and I feel like what I should do is line up all of them with all the different colors so that you can kind of see the swatches as they change. So I'm gonna get all that set up right now and then we can analyze it after. What do you think about that, Goose? This is kind of cool. I found one piece that where the pink and the orange fit together. Cool. I think I've been doing this wrong. I'm pretty sure that the first one I got out that I said was definitely pink, I'm pretty sure that that was the scarlet red. And I think the ones that I just labeled as purple might have been the black. um so I'm not really sure what to do with that. I'm just going to keep going through and labeling them and putting them into their piles. But then I think I'm going to get out maybe a sheet of paper or something and start building the actual like catalog of colors so that I can see them all beside each other and then figure out which one's which. But I'll keep labeling them because even if all the scarlets are labeled pink, then, you know, I'll label the actual pink ones something else and we'll figure it out. Do we think that this project is just cursed? Is that what's going on here? Should I give up? I can't give up. I have grants. First, Benji went to the hospital, and then a week later, it was my turn to go to the hospital. I probably talked about that in the last video. So anyway, now with both of us having medical emergencies, it's time to finally do the swatch catalog part of this project. Now, what do I mean when I say a swatch catalog? Well, what, you think you're just allowed to come into my house and start asking me all these hard, complicated questions? So I have all the swatches that I dyed last time. My thinking is I just want to like, whoa, hello Tito, look who decided to join us. Like the purpose of this is just to have kind of one reference that's going to show how the dyes react to different types of used fabrics. So what I'm thinking is I had this canvas paper that I found in my stash. I think this belonged to Benji, but it's mine now. And so on one side it kind of has this very natural canvasy texture. The other side is like, I don't know, gessoed or whatever. It's pretty thick, but it's also like kind of pliable. I don't know. So what I was thinking was that I could take these sheets and then kind of make them into a little booklet, kind of like that. And then I could put some craft paper on there just to make it cute. And then actually I should get the swatches to explain what I'm thinking. Let's do that first. Tito, are you trying to have your own YouTube channel? Are you trying to vlog? Tito, how am I supposed to do my work? How am I supposed to do my work? Tellement d'amour. Toi, tu veux toujours les câlins, toi. Toujours les câlins. Plein de câlins. So yeah, my thought is that I would have these as the little booklet, and then I would take the little swatches and just kind of lay them out. And because this is like a pretty small surface area that I'm working with, I could take these and have like sections for each material, but then I could also take a piece and kind of have a page for each dye. I kind of want to do it both ways because I feel like that would be really pretty. One way would have sort of a rainbow of the different materials, but then the other way would have this beautiful like unified mosaic of a bunch of different textures. And then the good news is about it being this canvas paper is then I could also swatch my paints on here. I could take certain pieces and swatch the paints on top of the dyed fabric. So I think the first thing that I need to do is I just need to kind of regroup here. It's been a few weeks, so I'm gonna lay everything out back in its piles. Then I'm gonna start cutting all the pieces into uniform sizes and getting them ready to lay out on the page. What do you think, Tito? If you approve, flick your tail. That was a freebie. Why are you being so annoying right now? Do not sit there. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I remember that I put the clips on these black because I couldn't really label them. So I had some kind of code here to remind me. So like I think the ones with the red and yellow clips were ones that I dyed orange. I get it. At the end of this, once I have the catalog, I do want to go through and scan them. So also in the chaos of all this, I remember that I labeled a bunch of things wrong. Like I think the ones I thought were purple were actually black, and then the ones that I thought were pink were actually red. So this is labeled PPP, which I think means that this is the actual pink because I was like, it's pink, pink, pink. This is so chaotic. But this is why we do this, because then we learn. Or we don't learn and then we do the mistakes again later, and that's fine. This is already taking way longer than I thought, but that's okay. I went through and put them all together by material again, and then as I was going, I cut off pieces to put aside for piles that are based on color instead. And what I did was, just as I was going, I made sure that I didn't cut off the part where I'd labeled them. I guess you can't really see there. Here you see there's a Y, that's for yellow. I made sure that I kept that part on so that in the piles by material, I know what color they all are. Now you might notice that I got my sewing machine out here. I am wondering if I could sew the pieces onto the canvas paper with the sewing machine. You know, my instinct says that it is gonna work because it feels very like fabric-y, and I know that a machine can go through paper, but the only problem is the one side is gessoed, so I think if there's any problem, that's gonna be it. I don't know, let's stop talking and let's just try. That's her little song just for me. I'm just setting it to like a regular stitch, like as long as it can go, which I think is 5 millimeters. And I just have regular thread in. It's pink on the top and it's black on the bottom right now. And I'm just going to put in a little corner here and see what happens. Let's try. Okay, I mean, it looks like that worked. Hopefully you can see that there. I think I just need to adjust the tension, but I think it worked. Well, that's going to make my life a lot easier because now I don't have to glue it. Now, in a perfect world, I would swap out the thread color here to be white, probably, to match kind of the color of the paper. But I just checked and I don't have any white thread. So I'm going to put in a pink bobbin. And then I think what I need to just... Whoa. No. You know, dropping a spool of thread on the ground is already kind of devastating. Dropping a spool of thread on the ground when you have cats, chaos. But none of them are around right now. Now, immediately I am seeing kind of a problem here. I have a lot of swatches that some of them are really big and I don't have very much space. Like, I don't want this to be a huge, massive thing. I mostly just want it to be a good reference, but at the same time, on ones where they have a print, I want to have enough in the swatch catalog that you can actually see how the dyeing affects different colors in the print. I'm thinking what that'll mean is just for some of them, I'll keep the pieces a little bit bigger, and for other ones, I'll cut the pieces down a lot smaller. And then because we can sew this right now, I'll do this upside down so you can see. Because we can sew it, what I'm thinking is I will place them like this and do the stitch across the top, and then you could lift it and I'll write down what it is underneath. And that'll also mean that my wrong labeling won't matter, like this one that says pink when it was scarlet. Let's do one together. So I think this fabric's a good one to start with because it's sturdy, so it'll be easy to sew onto the paper while I'm starting. And it dyed really, really well. So I feel like this is good. You might remember in my Pride quilt video, I complained about this fabric not dyeing very well for the aqua color, but that was my bad. I realized after that when I was doing that one, I did not shake the aqua dye. A fool's mistake. So that's why for that one, only the fabrics that like really absorb dye extremely well, which was basically just the fresh white cotton. Only those ones showed the aqua at all. I'm going to stack these all on top of each other and then cut them down to like roughly the same size. This fabric's pretty thin, so the layers is no problem. Perfect. And then I think I'll do rainbow order, starting with the scarlet, then orange, yellow. I did do a mix of yellow and green, but this fabric doesn't have one, so then we go to dark green. There is an aqua, but I don't have that here, so we go to the blue. The black always looks purple, so do I put it in purple for the sake of rainbow? Oh, but then I also wanted room to have the original one at the top. Do we cut them all narrower so that there's room? Or do we switch and just do it this way? Let's try this way. I do think that's better. We maybe lose the satisfying rainbow, but I don't think we're going to be able to to do that for every single one. Now, if you are doing this yourself, at this point, you should do something to baste them down. Maybe I will do that. I think I have a glue stick or something. Hold on. I have an absolutely ancient glue stick that that has no glue left in it. Okay. This is a do as I say, not as I do moment, okay? I'm going to just do this without doing anything to secure these down, but you should do something to secure these down. Okay. Anyway, we don't need these here right now. Let's just try. So I'm leaving myself a little tail of thread at the beginning here. And then I'm kind of using the top of the paper and lining it up with the 4/8 marking on my machine. And then I'm going to line up the top edge of the fabric with the presser foot, and then I'm going to move the stitch over all the way over to the side here so that it's as close as possible. It'll leave like a tiny little bit, and then I'm scared, so I'm going to do my first one this way. And then the paper will scoot. Okay. I'm going to turn the speed down on my machine, and we're just going to go. I'm going to slide in the next one here. Leave a little bit of a gap so that I can lift them both up. It looks like this edge is a little bit straighter, so I'm going to put it in this way. And then we'll go really slow and just make sure that the next one goes under the presser foot too. Careful. Okay. The next one is on. I just zoomed in. I don't know if you can see. I can tell immediately this is going to be really crooked, but that's okay. Okay, I'm just going to get the next one in and we'll keep going. I am trying to at least keep the top of the paper straight there. I think I'm doing okay. Lining it up with one of the markers there. Okay, we're getting to the end of this first row. We're going to see how this went. I'm going to stitch all the way off the edge, I think. Off the edge. And then I want a little bit of a tail, so I'm not going to use the thread cutter. I'm just going to tug it out and trim it. And let's see how we did. Okay, honestly, I think that worked totally fine. And then each one you can like, what is this? Oh, okay. What is this? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that worked. I think that totally worked. Okay. Now, something that I just thought about is that I do want this to be double-sided. I want there to also be swatches on the back. I'm wondering, oh, well, I guess I can just, when I want to do the other side, I have to remember to flip these up and then I can like clip them in place. But I think that'll be fine. We'll see. Okay, let's fill this page. Let's go. Now that I have my proof of concept that this is working and it's going to be all good, I think what I'm going to do is on these ones you saw, I drew the lines across to kind of mark where the stitches are going. I think what I'm going to do is go through each page and kind of mark down where each swatch is going to go. And then that way I can cut the swatches to the right size and sew them on. I think also I'm going to try and for the next pages have the whole row ready to go so that I can just do one stitch all the way across the top, and that'll just save me some work. This honestly looks better than I thought it would. I'm so happy. I'll need to break for lunch soon, but let's see how much progress we can make. What did you make, Benji?
Pineapple too.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go eat. As we keep going here, I'm going to tell you what I'm planning to actually do with this catalog. Obviously, I'm not the first person in the world to try dyeing fabrics that have been used and broken down, but I was really interested in exploring the different ways that dyes respond when something is damaged or does have stains on it. Or even like if you look at this one here, you see where it's fraying along the edges a little bit. In this fabric, those edges turn a little bit more the color that I dyed it, whereas the thread is probably a synthetic fiber, so it holds the original color more. This is what I find interesting and what I think is cool, and that's why I'm using the materials that I have access to do these experiments and see what happens. But something else that I want to try doing eventually as part of this project is I said I'm going to be scanning these pages once I'm done with them. Once I scan them, that will give me really high resolution, close-up pictures of the materials. I think that'll just be cool. But the kind of next level that I really want to try doing is I want to take those scans and I want to compare like the color information of the original swatch compared to its dyed version. And then I feel like it'd be cool to come up with some kind of software or something where I could input the different fabrics that I have, how much I have of them, and then could make digital mock-ups with the amount of material that I actually have in real life, and take the color information, compare that to the dyes, and then make software that could dye the fabric different colors and come up with how it thinks it would actually look. This would obviously be useful just practically to kind of sketch out my designs, but I also think that it would be a really interesting way to make art in and of itself. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. For the purposes of this project, I'm just going to do this like manually myself in Photoshop or in Illustrator. But I think even just that will be a really cool way to get like a preview or an idea that's fairly color accurate of how the final product will look. How many back stitches are you supposed to do? I feel like I'm guessing every time. Oh, fuck. I forgot the whole point was that I was going to do the whole row at once. I'm like the worst at talking while I'm trying to do something. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do for my YouTube channel now? I'm going to talk while I do important projects. Whatever. Maybe I'll remember next time. I also drew lines on this paper and then I'm not following them at all. Oh shit. FedEx is here again. I don't think he's coming to my house though. Okay, FedEx is gone. It wasn't for me today. I ordered a 14 terabyte hard drive for all my porn. I don't know why I said that. I thought that'd be so funny. No, actually, it's to store all the fucking footage that I have from doing these projects. I bought this hard drive for you. You're welcome. Anyway, did I finish my thought? My purpose of doing all of this is not to make you watch and think, oh, I'm going to go and do exactly that. You can if you want. I wouldn't recommend doing it like me. Because while I do think that overconsumption is a problem, I don't think there's any point in fixing the overconsumption with shame. Because guess what? Most of the time, the shame is used to try and motivate people to just buy something different, or convincing people that they need to do all these tasks that they just do not have the energy, the resources, the time to do, and that just ends up with a worse outcome. I'm gonna I'm gonna stop because I could just keep going. Don't use me as a tutorial, and do your best with whatever you do. I just dropped everything on the ground. Okay, Benji and I have to get going. This is what we're leaving off with right now. I have this page basically done, and we have this page looking pretty good. I'll work when we come back home tonight, and let's check in tomorrow, see how much I got done. Next day, let's update. I got super sidetracked while I was doing that, but we'll talk about that in a second. So I continued with doing the swatches by material here. I actually ended up running out of space for a lot of these, and so I kind of culled down some of the swatches a little bit if I felt like they were redundant. You also might notice that I started just sewing all the way across. Once I actually was like trying to flip through it like a book with just the tops sewn down, it was such a floppy mess, and I was like, oh, everything's gonna get like creased and all folded on top of itself. And since I was doing both sides, I was like, man, I might as well just commit that I'm gonna try and sew all the way through both layers instead of trying to like really carefully fold each one out of the way like on either side. There were a few that escaped like right here, but no perfection zone in this house. But I did pretty good with not really having any snags. Overall, I think that this looks how I wanted it to, and I'm happy with it. So I did that, sorting them by material, and then some of the materials I dyed the same swatch, the same color, just because. So with those extras, I went through and sorted them by the dye color. So this was taupe. In here we have the brown that I made. This is the aqua, which again might not be that good because I think I forgot to shake the bottle. This was the black, which turned out very purple. And here, this one I think is my favorite for the like unity. The yellow. I feel like that yellow is just so powerful. On this page here, along the bottom was evening blue. On this side here is of course the scarlet red, which I thought was pink at first, whatever. And then over here is the dark green, forest green. I feel like that's so cool. I think my only regret is I wish I went a little bit more creative with like layering and doing something fun with the collage here. Here was my yellow green where in the container I thought that it was looking a little bit too green, so I added more yellow, but then the final result ended up being way more yellow. So I should have just trusted the process, but... And then this was my orange that I mixed. Orange turned out really, really good as well. I feel like that yellow dye is just maybe really strong. It's kind of similar to working with paint where like you'll usually get a lot brighter colors if you think of it as magenta, cyan, and yellow as your primaries. That's what I was trying to do with the dye colors that I picked. And then grand finale, saved the best for last. Are you ready? The pink. That is so cool. I just love that so much. And I definitely will still label them, but I will also say over time, just kind of like sorting them to make this book, I really started to get the hang of identifying them without having to check anything or without worrying about my labels. This page probably turned out the best, and I think that was the first page I did because that's how it always goes with me. My motto is doing everything perfectly and totally right the first time and then fucking it up every time after. Okay, but this isn't even the exciting part, okay? I'm gonna show you the exciting part now. Hi everyone, this is Editing Kim here. My mic was not recording every time I showed you my screen here, so I'm gonna be tag teaming a little bit with myself as we go through this. So I have just like a pretty normal printer that has a scanner on top. I've used it a couple times, so I knew it was decent, but I never really looked into the settings. So when I was starting to scan these pages, once I had them done, I was just taking a look at the different things I could change to make sure that it was going to turn out really good. Now you might be able to see here, the one to pay attention to is the resolution as a default was set to 600 dpi. So this is the number that tells the file how physically big the image is. So here, for example, as I'm scanning this picture, 600 would mean that in every inch of space on this page, the image will have 600 pixels in that inch. And that is a very high resolution file. I would say the normal with digital art and stuff would probably be 300 dpi. That's normally as good as you'll need for most purposes. So when I saw 600, I was pretty excited. But I was curious how high or how low it could go. So I opened up the menu here to take a look at the options. And this blew my mind. My printer scanner says that it can go up to 9,000 DPI. Now, if I actually tried to scan the entire page at 9,000 DPI, it says that it can't do it. That very much makes sense. Because if you think about it, this is like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. We're doing 9,000 DPI. That would make this file like over 100,000 pixels long. And I don't even know if I have that much space on my hard drive with all my footage. Still waiting for those 14 terabytes, By the way, if anyone out there knows how scanners work, I would love to know why it's not a shitty printer, but it's just like a normal mid-range printer that I bought at Staples. Why this printer has a scanner on it that can do 9,000 DPI, I would love to know. This is like, to me, getting to the point of like an amateur microscope almost. I'm assuming that it's just like the camera moves, right? So probably any scanner could do it then. It's just depending on how long you're willing to wait, how big of a file size you can handle. I really don't know. But also I might be hyping it up a little too much. It's very cool. It didn't like totally blow my mind the way I thought it would. Anyway, let's just show you. So I started off here at kind of the normal DPI of 300. This is 300 DPI resolution. You can see already that this looks really, really good. You're able to zoom in and get a really crisp shot of the different swatches. You can already start to see the details on the stitches. You can see where I remembered to make my stitch length longer, which is what I wanted, and where I forgot and still had the shorter stitch length. The textures of the different materials really pop out. This is already a really good high resolution picture. Now, as we start to zoom in here, you do see it gets a little bit pixelated, but even still, that's a pretty crisp picture. We must already be better than our eyeballs at this point. Now what I did here is I am going to move it over to this one certain spot of one swatch, and then I'm going to show you the same spot on the next resolution up that I did, which was my printer's default 600 DPI, double the resolution that you're seeing right now. Okay, take a look, really absorb, remember how it looks. Okay, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, 600 DPI. That's so crazy. So it's basically now everything that was looking a little bit pixelated is now like more sharpened and brought into focus. You can see where the sewing machine went through the canvas paper right there. You can see the texture of the canvas paper so clearly. Like, oh, I loved this terry material. Zoom in, zoom in. Look at how fascinating that is. Also, it got really blurry along all the stitches. I don't know why that happened, but look at that. So let's go back to our A here, and now we're going to go up one more time. We're going to go from 600 to 1200 DPI. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, 1200 DPI. This one's upside down, so sorry if that's a little bit confusing. At this resolution, this to me is like amateur microscope for a kid kind of thing. And what really stuck out to me was this red material here. You can zoom in so far and see the texture of that. And when you compare it to the swatch in real life, like, I don't know, this is the fabric that we're looking at here. It just looks like that. You know, I have good vision up close, so I can see the texture of it a little bit. But you compare it to the up close view that we have here, and you get so much insight into like the actual construction of this material. And I found this so interesting. You can see so clearly the difference of the two sides of the fabric. So you see here, some of these swatches I put down facing a certain way, and other ones I put down facing the other way. After I looked at this, I started touching it and I realized maybe I could tell that one side was a tiny bit smoother and the other side was a little bit rougher, but I don't think I would have ever picked up on that if I hadn't seen this up close this way. Also at this resolution, the texture of this terry material really starts to pop out, and you can see how the dye sticks to the different materials within this fabric differently. I might be wrong, someone can correct me, but I think that with a terry material like this, they use a more synthetic fiber kind of in the front there to hold in, I think, usually a more natural fiber in the back. I might be wrong, but I think that's then how fleece is made. But if that is right, then that would make sense here, because you see that the back really got dyed black very well, but those fibers in the front kept their pink a little bit more. And we also got a good view of the different colors that the lint got dyed. Now the moment that you've been waiting for, let's take a look at what this material here looks like at 9,000 DPI. Okay, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, 9,000 DPI. I think this is just where the scanner's focus is probably more the limitation here than the actual camera itself, because it's not really that super crisp and clear, but still, I mean, you can zoom in pretty far here and get a look at the different textures of the different materials. You can see these tiny, tiny, tiny little fibers. You can see the individual strands where it's fraying at the edges. That is just so wild to me. I'll show you a few others that I took at this resolution just because as I'm talking here, but I don't want to get too sidetracked because this isn't the purpose of this video. But if you have any ideas for different materials or textures or something that we could look at this high resolution, please let me know, because I feel like that would be such a fun other video to do. Who knew that this was just on my printer? Absolutely crazy. Okay, so we have all the individual pages here. The last step that I did that I didn't show you was I just went around the edges of each one with a little zigzag stitch. I feel like that's going to hold them in place good enough for me. So I folded them all, lined them all up nicely in this little stack. I'm also going to include one blank page, and I mentioned wanting to have kind of my paint swatches here, and I was thinking that this could be really good where I could just paint directly on top of any swatch that I want to kind of test how the paint works with that material. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. I'm throwing a blank page there on the end. So now I've never done anything like this before in my life. I don't know how to make a book, but I was looking at this. So this is just like brown craft paper that I had in my stash. I took two pieces here and I folded them so that like the big sides are the right length to like kind of cover the front of the book. Okay, so then if I put my camera on it here, when I kind of take my pages, if I stick them in here, you see how that's kind of the right size. So here's what I'm thinking. This piece here is about double the like depth of the book that I'm needing. So if I fold this over either inside or outside, I don't think it matters. I'll fold this over, glue it down. Then I can go through each page here and kind of open it up, do a stitch along here. God help me, I don't know. So then this will be like all attached together, and it'll have kind of like one cover on it. Then what I'll do for even more sturdiness is I'll take this cover, I'll also fold this so that it's the same size. I'll glue this onto here, and then I think in theory that should give us a little book, right? I think that makes sense. So that's my plan. I'm going to put on headphones and start doing it, and I'll update you if there's any problems, which there probably will be. So I just did the first one here, and as I was doing it, I kind of realized that probably sewing with my machine through hot glue gun glue is not gonna go super well. I do think it could work if I just did a little bit of a thinner layer, but I think I went a little too thick here. So what I'm gonna do is put this aside as kind of the outside spine of my little booklet, and then I'm gonna prep the other piece and hopefully do a little bit of a thinner layer of the hot glue here. I think what I should do this time is just do a very thin layer of glue along the lower edge. And then technically here it won't be glued together, but I think that'll be fine because it'll just stitch through both layers. So let's try this live on camera. Let's go. Should I be doing this on my bare desk? Probably not. So there's like the part where the cover folds over, and then there's the part where the spine folds over. There's a tiny little gap. Do you see right there? Of, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch maybe. So I'm just gonna mark down with a pen a very rough kind of dotted line along the fold here. This will kind of mark the boundary of where the glue should go. So now all I have to do is put some glue along that line. Hopefully. And then I'm gonna try and be really quick. Just do the glue in a thin line and then just put that over and then smooth it down. Let's try. Do you want a close up? Okay, ready? Let's go. Quick, 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 quick. Okay, put that down. Fold quick and smooth. Press, press, press. Okay. We're not really getting anything seeping out from the edge, and it looks like it's all staying down. And I can feel along here there's like a very small bridge where the little line of glue went, but there's no glue up here. Okay, I think I totally nailed that. Didn't I say earlier that I do things right the first time and wrong the second time? Not this time. So now we have the two halves. Let's turn this off and get this unplugged. That is a safety hazard. And you know what else is a miracle? I used this and I did not burn myself. I don't think that's ever happened before. Okay, let that cool down in the corner. We have our two book covers. Now with the glue, these feel very sturdy. So now, which is the one? This is the one that I'm gonna be sewing through. So the next step will just be trimming the excess on the top. So I'm just gonna mark across the line where I'm gonna trim it. Gonna still give myself a little bit of excess there. Make sure the line is straight. By make sure, I mean I'm gonna guess. Yeah, I think that's good. Gonna cut it out. This line, if I left it, we would see it on the final product. So I'm gonna cut just a tiny bit inside of the line. There we go. Now it's the right size. Proof. I'm just going to put this on top, mark out the line. Could have used a ruler, but cut it out. Again, making sure to just cut off the line. Okay, now we have the covers. So this is going to go like this together. Yeah, that's like a book. Cute. Let's do the sewing, do the final hot glue, and meet back when the book is done. We're done. Ready? Ta-da! You know, it actually kind of looks like a little book. This really makes me want to do more of this type of thing, of kind of like making a book out of fabric. I don't know. I feel like I could see something cool with doing like a mixed media, like quilted painted picture book or something like that. Oh yeah, also I added this ribbon onto the spine. I did this because it didn't quite line up. The second half was a little bit too long and I didn't want to have to like trim it, so I just put something over top of it, and honestly I think that's totally fine, and it kind of gives it a little extra detail that makes it a little bit even extra booky, you know? Here's my book. Wait, get out of the way. Thumbnail. Okay, Benji's home. We're gonna show him. Benji, come here.
Oh, okay. Sick.
It's not perfect, but
No, it's really cool though. That's like an actual like catalog.
yep. And then what I was thinking was, like, as I'm doing my project, because I have a bunch of different materials in different colors.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm like, oh, what is it like to put just a little bit of paint on this one?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could paint on top
can
of
try
these
it,
and
yeah.
just try.
Yeah.
And I feel like this will just be such a fun little chaotic
Yeah.
book.
That's really nice. It's
Yeah.
like a sketchbook with fabric.
Yeah, kind of. I am going to
Okay.
go through and like label them, but I'm not going to do that on camera because that's too much work for right now.
Sweet.
Okay, I'm going to end my video. Thank you for watching. This was so much fun. And yeah, signing out.
Signing out.